Well, in the first place, you were crouching too much on that shot. You had your nose down here against the ball, and you were tensing every muscle. Stand up fairly erect. Be comfortable. This little shot ought to be played about like a long putt.
You don't use your putting grip, brother, eh?
Oh, no, not at all. I use just the ordinary overlapping grip that I use for all my other shots. I was just saying that this little shot ought to be played like a long putt. You should stand up fairly erect and comfortably, take a nice long backswing, be perfectly relaxed, and then simply knock it up to the hole.
Bob, I notice you're using a Massie-iron for that shot. Do you use that club for all your chip shots?
No, indeed. I use at least 4 different clubs. Massie-iron, Massie-Niblick, and sometimes even a Niblick, depending on the character of shot required. Now, up here where I'm near the green and the hole is far back, I use this Massie-iron, a club which has very little loft, because I need very little pitch and lots of roll. Then I address the ball at a point about opposite my right toe and hood the face of the club slightly. What I mean by hooding the club is that I turn it from this position, which is its normal lie, to this position. Then I hit slightly downward upon the ball. I find that this gives me much better direction than if I played the ball opposite my left foot with the club in its normal position. What I intend to say is that my thought is always to pitch as far as a putting green in order to avoid the uncertainties of the fairway, which may be between the ball and the green. So naturally, if I move back a distance, then I must use a more lofted club. Now here, I'm about 40 feet from the edge of the green. And following the thought of always pitching to the green, I must take a more lofted club. In this case, a Massie.
Bob, would you please try some more?
Sure,
Bill, I want you to watch this left hand.
I always play a straightforward shot wherever possible, and never make any attempt to put backspin on the ball unless it is absolutely necessary. Now let's move back a bit and I'll show you where I use a Massie-Niblick. Lord, let's have some more balls. You just watch a few shots here. Now back here, it's just the same shot, but with a more lofted club because I have to pitch farther. In making this shot, there should be no attempt to limit the use of any part of the body. Arms, wrists, hips, and knees all should have their part in accomplishing a smooth, leisurely stroke with no suspicion of hurry. Why is it that often when using a Massie-Niblick, I hit the ball way up here in the heel of the club and it shanks off to the right? Bill, that's probably because your arms are away from your body at address, and when you hit the ball, your left elbow flies up. Now, to prevent this, keep your hands low at address and your left arm straight until you've hit the ball. Now, there's just one thing more before we leave this Massie-Niblick. Occasionally, a shot comes up where it is necessary to apply a little backspin to the ball in order to shorten its roll. When this happens, I move the ball up to a point about opposite my left toe and lay the face of the club off a bit, like this. Then I hit slightly across the ball. This shot is not intended to produce a vicious backspin, but merely to apply the brakes a little to shorten the roll of the ball.
Oh, it's the same old story, Bob. Every time I get into one of these traps, I simply can't get out.
That's all right. It's not as bad as all that. Just open the face of your club a little bit and hit a couple more.
Do you mean like that?
Yes. Well, that's all right. Go ahead. Try another.
Oh, you see, I can't do it, Bob. Oh, do you think it's my grip?
No, your grip's fine. It's not that. Your conception of this shot is all wrong. You're not going about it in the right way.
Well, will you show me how to make the shot once again?
Certainly, I'll try to. Stand over here a minute.
Thanks very much.
But before I play the shot, just let me show you one or two things that you were doing. For example, you were addressing the ball at a point about opposite your right toe, and you had closed the face of your club. Now, in playing a shot from the sand, there are two things which are likely to happen and which may spoil the shot. One is to take too much sand and leave the ball still in the bunker, just as you did a moment ago, or to take too little sand and send the ball far over the green. I always feel that my margin of safety is greater in a deep bunker like this if I hit well under the ball, so that I will be certain to get it into the air. In order to accomplish this, I address the ball at a point about opposite my left toe, sometimes even a bit farther forward. And then I lay the face of the club off, like this, and hit across the line. Watch for the first stop. This position illustrates the straight left arm and how it controls the path of the swing. The wrists have just begun to break. This is a top position, showing the left arm still straight and the wrists fully cocked. Halfway down, notice that all the wrist action has been saved for hitting the ball. Now comes a punch, and just before impact, there is the left arm still driving through. There goes the ball. The work has been done. The left arm collapses, and everything passes through to the finish of the stroke. But from a clean lie, like this, I never take much sand, just enough to get the club under the ball. When I play the shot in this way with the club face open, even if I take too little sand or hit too hard, the ball is not likely to go over the green. And that knowledge gives me confidence to hit hard enough to be certain that the ball gets out of the bunker.
I think I see it now. But, Bob, supposing the ball is in a heel print or buried, how'd you play that shot?
I play this shot in exactly the same way, except that I take more sand behind the ball and hit a bit harder. There's one other thing to remember, and that is, since there's a large cushion of sand between the face of the club and the ball goes up practically without spin, and it is therefore necessary to allow for a good bit of roll.
I've got it. Let me try it again.
All right.
Is that right?
That's fine.
Well, how's that?
That's fine. I don't think you'll have any more trouble on these. But you've started with the hardest shot. Let's go down here and play some easy ones.
Great. You know, Bobby, I thought I'd never get that shot.
Put the balls here, Louis. Now, there's not a great deal to this shot, except to know when to use it. Now, here, I use a Massie-Niblick because I have a clean lie on the sand, the bank of the bunker's quite low, and the hole is far back.
I noticed you played the ball much farther back than you did in the other bunker.
Yes, because even though the ball is lying on the sand, the shot is still a chip shot. And I play it just as I would a similar shot from the fairway. That is, back off the right foot again, with the club slightly closed, and then I hit down on the ball. You'll notice that I take the sand after I hit the ball.
That looks a nice, easy way to get out of a bunker. I'll have to practice that.
Well, that's all it takes, just a little practice. But let's get back to the niblick for a minute. You know, a lot of people have an idea that a niblick is only useful in a bunker or in long grass. But I find it to be a fine club for certain shots from the fairway. Come over here and I'll show you what I mean. Right here, Lou. Now, here's a shot which has to be stopped very quickly. I use a niblick because its greater loft permits me to hit the ball more firmly. And for that reason, it's easier to apply backspin. Now, the first thing in playing this shot, just as in playing every other shot, is to get yourself in a comfortable position where you can swing the club easily.
I see.
Now, I want you to look at my stance and notice that I play this shot with my feet quite close together. I do that because it makes me more comfortable and because it enables me to turn my hips more freely. If I stand with my feet farther apart, the hip turn becomes very difficult, and I'm inclined to play the shot with my arms and hands alone. Now, this is one of the most common mistakes the average golfer makes. I want you to notice also that I don't have to reach for the ball out here. I stand close enough to it so that my arms may hang naturally downward. All this adds to the comfort of the position. Now, here's one thing that's particularly troublesome with this club. Whenever my Massie-Niblick shots go wrong, it is usually because I have failed to cock my wrist during the backswing. Sometimes it is hard to keep the left arm straight without setting up some tension in this left hand. You know, there's lots of things that become automatic in this game after a while, but I always have to think of getting this wrist action at the top of the swing.
Wait a minute, Bob. Let me see that grip.
Well, it's just the ordinary overlapping grip, but I want you to notice the position of my hands on the club. My left hand is fairly well over on top of the shaft. Then my right hand comes in, and it is likewise on top. I want you to notice also that my hands are in front of the ball. All of these things encourage a downward blow. You must be careful that the right hand is not placed too much under the shaft, for in that position, its tendency is to turn the face of the club over. I always try to emphasize the importance of an ample backswing. We see so many golfers who begin hitting before they reach the top of the swing. They go back fast and they get in such a rush to hit the ball that they yank the club down before they fairly get it back. I never play well unless I swing back slowly and make certain of reaching the top before I start down.
Well, do you feel that you're using one hand more than the other when you take the club back?
I certainly do. I feel that I push the club back with the left hand and never lift it up with the right. This is one of the very important things which keeps the club always swinging inside the line of flight and prevents it coming up too abruptly.
Oh, yes, I see. I'm beginning to understand now, Bob.
You know, Bob, I play that Massie-Niblick shot pretty well. But when the ball lands, it keeps on rolling. I can't get any backspin.
I have the same trouble.
Well, that's no doubt because you're both trying to lift the ball instead of punching it down. The fact that the shot is intended to fly high does not mean that it must be lifted into the air. Just remember that the loft of the club is supposed to take care of that. The stroke which produces backspin takes the ball first and then the turf. All right.
Hello, Mr. Jones.
Hello, boy.
Hey, Georgie, where you been? We've been looking all over for you.
Go away. We're practicing.
Oh, heck. Can't we watch Mr. Jones?
You'll have to ask Georgie. He's the boss.
How about it, Georgie?
No, I don't think so.
Georgie, come on. Be a sport.
All right, if you keep awful quiet.
Well, thanks, Georgie. Thanks, Mr. Jones.
You boys play golf?
Well, we try to.
That's fine. You'll find that golf is a game you can play and enjoy all your lives. And as young as you all are now, you should learn to play very well.
What's the best way to start, Mr. Jones?
Well, I don't know a better way than to get a mashie like this or mid-iron and a putter and start knocking the ball around until you get the feel of the club. There's nothing in the world that can take the place of good form.
Will you show us how you do it?
Well, the best thing I can do is to give you a few fundamentals of the swing. Of course, you'll have to work out the details for yourselves. Now, first is a matter of balance. A golfer doesn't need to fix himself in the ground so that he is immovable, because the only thing that can upset him is his own swing. As he stands before the ball, he should be alert and ready to move in any direction, with his weight evenly distributed on the balls of his feet, and never sitting back on his heels. And I think, unless his hands are very small, he is much better off using the ordinary overlapping grip, like this. Now, when it comes to hitting the ball, and this applies to any kind of a shot, remember that form is efficiency. In a good swing, as the club moves toward the ball, every force should be contributing its share toward increasing the speed of the club head. The shot you see here is approximately 140 yards in length. Of course, the distance from which a mashie should be used varies for each individual. The important thing is to select a club with which the distance can be covered comfortably without pressing. Now, it is absolutely fatal if the hand should be moving in one direction and the body in another. Now, I'll show you 3 ways in which this can happen. First, if there's too much weight on the left foot at the beginning of the swing. Second, if the weight should be shifted to the left foot during the backswing. And third, if the ball should be played so far back that it is necessary to shift back in order to hit it. Now, playing a ball as I do, well forward, there's no need for any shifting of the weight during the backswing. The body action is then merely a simple turn, and the weight remains about the same on each leg. But from the top of the swing down, the weight should flow evenly forward, so that at the finish, most of it is resting on the left leg. Now this is very important. Watch it closely. In starting the club down from the top of the swing, there's a very definite pull of the left arm from the shoulder. The wrists are not used at this point, and the right hand particularly is kept out of the stroke. Now wait just a minute, though. There's one thing more. I don't want you boys to start off with the idea that only one type of shot can be played with each club. Now I've been playing here high, quick stopping shots about as long as this club can comfortably care for. But I don't want you to overlook the fact that this Massie can also be very useful for pitch and run shots from shorter distances. Now come over here a minute.
Okay.
Now this is a shot about 40 yards in length. And sometimes when the greens become hard and dry, it's better to run up than it is to pitch. And in any case, it's well to know both shots so that you'll have an option. Now the main thing I want to show you is what makes the ball roll. Now this is really an elongated chip shot with the ball played back off the right foot again. The face of the club is closed and remains closed throughout the stroke. Now this shot is primarily one of safety, because it is almost certain to get the ball up somewhere near the hole. The idea is to strike the ball fairly in the back. You cannot actually produce overspin, but you can play the shot so that it will have a minimum of backspin. The ball should be swept along close to the ground, so that it will roll smoothly and not be easily deflected from the line. Harold, your stance and position at address are all right. Your feet are not too far apart, and your body appears to be easy and comfortable. Just see that you keep them that way, because that's the way to play golf. Now, I think your trouble is in your left side. You know, I'm a firm believer in left arm control. Now, watch this a moment. Now, I don't think you need to worry about this right hand except to keep it out of the stroke. Now, there are two places in the swing where it simply must be kept out. The first is at the beginning of the backswing. Now, from this position, the right hand and arm should be perfectly relaxed, and the club should be pushed back with the left arm and left side, like this. The right arm is simply following in the way. Now, there's just one thing that will make it easier for you to use your left arm properly. When you address the ball, your arms are far out, and your left elbow is bent too much. I'd like to see you drop your hands down and bring them closer into your body so that your left arm will hang practically straight.
Watch Bobby's next shot closely. A perfect bullseye. One good camera gone.
Now, I said a moment ago that your trouble was in your left side. More specifically, it's this. You're not turning your left hip out of the way fast enough. Your hip gets so far, and then it locks and prevents your going through with a shot. It makes you hit the ball up when you know that it ought to be hit down. Now watch the left heel return to the ground just after the club starts down. The weight flows forward and downward as the club approaches the ball. And here you see what I mean when I say that the left hip turns out of the way. Notice that long before the club strikes the ball, the hip is turned far past the position it occupied at address. It is actually turning ahead of the stroke, so that it offers no resistance to a free passage of the arms. Look at the left heel again, and observe that the weight settles on the left leg at the finish. You see what I mean?
Yeah, but Bob, I've always been afraid to move my hips too much. I thought it'd make you sway.
Oh, no. Hip action has nothing in the world to do with swaying. Now, this shot here illustrates a free hip movement which is not swaying. The hips shift a bit forward, but the head remains steady, and the shoulders merely turn. Now, Harold, watch my left arm. Now, you hit this last one and get your left hip out of the way. That's it.
There, that feels a lot better.
Well, why don't you use that spoon that your caddy wanted to give you?
Oh, Bob, I can't use that thing.
Well, you took a mighty poor club to play safe with.
What do you mean?
Well, you chose a number 1 iron, which is the hardest club in the bag to play. And the spoon is just about the easiest.
Well, I wish you could make it look easy to me.
Well, I think I can. Here, Louis. Now, just watch this a minute. Well, Judge Warren's trouble with this shot, and very likely it's yours too, is that whenever he takes a wood club in his hands, he feels that he has to pick the ball cleanly off the ground and lift it into the air. In other words, he tries to hit it on the upstroke. Now, when he swings a club in this way, it means that the low point of the arc is reached before the club contacts the ball. And one of two things is likely to happen. Either the club will strike the ground and knock the ball nowhere, or if it misses the ground, it will be coming up so abruptly that it will strike the ball above center and top it. Now, I want you to watch how I hit the ball downward. There's no need to worry about getting elevation. The loft of the club and the speed of the ball will make it rise.
Very good. Mr. Jones, tell me something. How can I get rid of my slice?
Well, in order to get rid of a slice, you first got to know what caused it.
Yeah, well, what causes it?
Well, there are three causes that we see most often. First, keeping too much weight back on the right foot in hitting the ball. Second, using the right hand too much at the top of the swing in starting the club down. And third, getting a right elbow too high at the top of the swing. Any one of these mistakes will force the club outside the line and cause it to cut across the ball from the outside in. Now, I think the club should be swung in this way, with both arms working close to the body. The left arm is perfectly straight and the right elbow folds up close to the side. It is not held in tightly, but it does not begin to come up until the swing nears the top and pulls it away. Coming down, the straight left arm is pulling hard to keep the club inside the line of flight and to avoid cutting across the ball. At impact, the left arm is straight and the right slightly bent. The right hand does not cross over the left until after the ball has been struck.
Well, never mind his slice. What about my hook, that quick one?
Well, Warren, we'd naturally expect a swing which produces a hook to be exactly opposite to that which causes a slice. It is the opposite in the sense that it swings across the line from the inside out instead of from the outside in. This usually happens when the player is trying to hit the ball up. Now, the ideal, of course, is to have the club moving exactly along the line of flight when it strikes a ball, with its face exactly true to the objective. The diagram shows that the club never passes beyond the white line on the ground, which represents the line of flight. The swing approaches the ball from inside this line, but at the instant of impact, the club is moving along it. Now, just one little suggestion. I said a moment ago that a number 1 iron was a very difficult club to use. It is so because it has very little loft. Now, several years ago, I started carrying 2 spoons in my bag. This one, just an ordinary spoon, and this one, more lofted, which almost exactly covers the range of the number 1. Now, this club is far easier to use than this one because of the greater pitch on the face. And I always give a spoon preference over the iron unless I want to play a low shot into a head wind. There you are, Louis. Just one thing more before we go. Don't fight the ball. Let the club do some of the work.